Struck him out. 2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Welcome up. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. We're here talking 2024 World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, and don't forget it. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Anthony Witrado. Anthony, happy Tuesday to you. How's the middle of November treating you?
It's treating me fantastic. Aside from this little cold that I'm fighting off from my 2-year-old, everything, hey, if this is what it took to get past that last hurdle, I'll be sick all winter.
The only downside for me right now is none of my World Series gear has arrived yet. I ordered one thing that was listed as out for delivery on Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. and it's now Tuesday evening and it has not arrived yet. So we're a little nervous about that. I've got a hat that's supposed to be here on Thursday. I do have to give one buddy a shout out. My buddy Jake just set me up with this. It is a collection of replica World Series rings, and it doesn't include 2024 yet. Hopefully it will. But I think these are real metal first of all, but it's got Kershaw, like 2020 is a Kershaw ring, 88's a Gibson ring. So, has any of your World Series stuff arrived?
I got the World Series hat.
I guess you were at the parade, so you bought stuff
at the parade. I got that there. Yeah. The other stuff though, not yet. I actually only ordered one other thing. My big want is the gold outlined year. I want that. Yeah.
So we're saving up money. That's a post Christmas, early spring purchase. Once those come out, sure. I'm with you. I did bets. So hopefully Walker Buehler's back with the Dodgers. Hopefully they make a gold lettered Walker Buehler jersey. That might be my purchase. I do have a Freddie Freeman jersey on the way as well. Juan Soto jersey is people in the chat asking. I have not ordered my Juan Soto jersey yet. And don't worry, you're not going to hear 17 minutes on me about why they should sign Juan Soto, which apparently is the most polarizing topic. So we're going to avoid that. We do have lots to talk about tonight. We're going to talk award season, Silver Slugger Award, some good news for the Dodgers. I want to have a conversation about Dave Roberts and whether or not he got robbed of even being included in the Manager of the Year finalists. We'll talk hot stove. What's the latest on Juan Soto, Roki Sasaki, and then kind of the bulk is I want to talk starting pitching and do a preview of the market. Sometimes I think, we'll talk about this later, but who knows how quickly things might move. So we'll talk about all the biggest free agents as well as the guy that is rumored to be available via trade the most, Anthony. But let's start with the Silver Slugger Awards. A good day for the Dodgers. Betts, Ohtani, and Teoscar Hernandez all win Silver Slugger Awards. It's the first time in franchise history that that the Dodgers had 3 winners of the Silver Slugger Award. They also won Team of the Year over the Diamondbacks. That's only the second time that award has been given out, but the Dodgers win it this year. Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, finalists at their position, but came up short, I would say deservedly so. So the good news, though, again, Betts, Ohtani, Hernandez, all taking home hardware for the Dodgers.
Yeah, the Will Smith one is interesting because we all, we kind of watched him every day and understood what that season looked like. Catching is not a hot spot at the moment for the National League in terms of offense. So, I guess the end of the year line looks okay for him. But for the other 3 guys, all absolutely incredibly deserving. I think that the interesting thing about Betts is he missed so much time and he still won. Sometimes that'll ding you, but he clearly did enough. So very happy with that. And then Teoscar and Ohtani were no-brainers.
Yeah, I looked at some of their numbers. Ohtani won it for designated hitter, a 181 weighted runs created plus. That was 27 points better than Ozuna. He had the highest on-base percentage, slugging percentage, home runs, total, runs, RBIs, and stolen bases. And most of these weren't close. He had 24 more runs, 25 more RBIs, 43 more steals, 15 more homers, and 100 points more in slugging percentage than everybody else in the designated hitter category. The only category he didn't win was batting average because Luis Arias beat him by 4 points in that category. Betts, I had to Google. I didn't realize he had won the utility award for Gold Glove, for Silver Slugger, but the 141 weighted runs created plus, he beats out Arias, Berger, and Brian Reynolds. Betts is the interesting one because he only played in 116 games. So when you look at the totals, Scott in the chat saying he reached qualifying hitter status by just 14 plate appearances. He only hit 19 home runs, had just 75 RBIs, but the OPS of 863, the 141 weighted runs created plus are the numbers that get him there. But Betts, he deserved it, like compared to the competition. Yeah. But it was just surprising given the low totals because he missed, he only played in 116 games.
Yeah, I think maybe I don't recall off the top of my head who does the Silver Slugger Awards. Is it the players?
I don't think so. I assume it's writers, but I could be wrong about that.
I don't think I know the BBWA doesn't do them.
Okay.
But either way, I think he got a lot of credit for the non-counting stats, which is something that I think all
managers and coaches
okay.
for Silver Slugger.
Which I think, and okay, now his I think reputation and his personality go a long way in this, but that's not to say that he was not the most deserving guy. I think he was. I think in this situation, though, aside from that, like I said, is they didn't give the full credence to just counting stats, right? Just the stats you rank that you rack up over the course of time and how many games you play for those. He got credit for the other stuff. And remember, before he got hurt, he had come back down to earth a bit, but he was like, we were worried that him and Ohtani were going to split MVP votes. Like he was that good, and so Ohtani's sort of, kind of rocket ship rise didn't really happen until after Mookie got hurt. For that first part of the season, Mookie was the guy really carrying that offense and driving that offense. So deserved for Mookie Betts. Happy that he got it. Happy that, it's been an incredible October, November for him so far. So he finished second in like a local bowling tournament too.
He was at the Lakers game. He was at the Rams game. He's living it up right now.
Living it up, Mook. Live it up.
Yeah. And again, his competition was Luis Arias, Jake Berger, and Brian Reynolds. Those were the other finalists at the utility position. So when that's your competition, 19 home runs, 75 RBIs, and an 860 OPS is going to do it. The last one is Teoscar Hernandez.
It's possible, Jeff, too, that position, that positionality helped him too.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what the numbers look like. Like, let's say he would have been a right fielder only or a second baseman only. I don't know what that competition would have looked like, but maybe it helped him that he ended up being in the utility category.
100%. I don't think from a counting stats perspective, he would have won in the outfield because Teoscar wins in the outfield alongside Jackson Merrill and Jurickson Profire. Yeah. Teoscar had a 134 weighted runs created plus. That was third in the NL. Seiya Suzuki, when I look at these numbers, is kind of the guy that when I look in the outfield, it feels like he had offensive numbers that probably deserved a little bit more love. And he's a guy that I think may have been ahead of Mookie just because of games played. But Teoscar, 33 home runs, 99 RBIs, 501 slugging percentage. All of those were best among National League outfielders. So a no-brainer for Teoscar Hernandez. But again, I think to your point, Mookie being eligible for the utility position, I think is what gets him this award because I'm not sure that his numbers would have, he wouldn't have passed Merrill or Profar in the outfield. And again, I think Seiya Suzuki may have been fourth. Mookie may have finished fifth. Even if the weighted runs created plus OPS were among the best, I think counting stats probably would have hurt him.
Yeah, I think when things were, had they been close enough, then you go to those kinds of things, and he probably doesn't win out over those guys, given the amount of games that he played.
Yeah, absolutely. Super chat here from Larry. Larry says, still thinking about the World Series. One of my favorite images is Will Smith's FU face as he was tagging out Stanton in Game 3. Look, Larry, we get to keep thinking about the World Series for the next, 3 months at least, maybe 12 months, maybe even longer. But yeah, I'm with you. So many great images, so many great moments from that World Series. And, I'll make a small plug. Tomorrow, we've got a special guest video that we'll be posting. It's a guy who's been on our show before, a guy who had some inside information as to what it was like to be in the clubhouse celebrating a World Series, some inside information about what it was like to be in the bullpen when Walker Buehler walked out there. So if you want to relive a little bit of World Series stuff, stay tuned tomorrow. Also, if you missed last week when Anthony and I broke down the top 10 moments from the postseason, that video was posted this morning as well. So if you want to go back and relive 10 through 1, the greatest moments from that run, as well as 3 or 4 honorable mentions, that is available for you as well. So lots of opportunities, Larry. We appreciate the super chat. I do want to talk, Anthony, about an award that it feels like maybe the Dodgers deserved more consideration for. One man in particular, that would be Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts maybe didn't deserve to win the Manager of the Year. We can talk about that. But for him not even to be a finalist among the 3 finalists for this award, behind Milwaukee's manager, the Mets manager, and the Padres manager, given what the Dodgers went through, Anthony, am I crazy for thinking it was absurd for Dave Roberts not to even be a finalist in this award?
Look, we've come on here before and, we've given Dave Roberts his heat and we've given him praise when he's deserved it. I thought that this one was a bit of a slap in the face for him.
Yeah.
And I think a bit of a slap in the face for the non-superstar Dodgers as well, because I think what him being left out of that top 3 for me says that it didn't really matter to anybody what happened actually on the field.
Yeah.
Because the Dodgers just had expectations. They lived up to those expectations during the regular season, finishing first. And maybe the fact that it was even a race in the last 10 days with the Padres made voters go, yeah, he didn't do the job well.
Yeah.
And unfortunately that happens when some writers don't pay attention to, the teams that they're covering in that league every day. Obviously they may be beat writers who cover one team every day or, whatever their situation may be. But I think if you paid attention to this club all season long, you understand that I think the job that he did and the job that those like I said, non-superstar players did to get them over that hump and to get past the Padres was absolutely one of the best managing jobs that he's done since he's been in a Dodger uniform. And I thought that to not be recognized for that, look, the World Series recognizes him for it, but I think for him not to be recognized in that way is a bit shameful, because you look at the other guys who are on that list and basically it's just become, oh, well, your expectations were either just fair or really poor, and you met them or exceeded them. And there's no real reward for a team or a manager who comes into the season with expectations, who was on the hot seat, who has admitted he felt like he was on the hot seat, and then has his roster depleted and still comes up with the best record in baseball. Like, for me, that should deserve something, at least a nod.
I'm with you, and it's 2 things to point out. The first is this award is a regular season award. It has nothing to do with what Dave Roberts did in the postseason in the World Series when he was fantastic. So worth pointing that out. The second thing is, if you look at preseason projected win totals, okay? Preseason projected win totals, the Brewers, who their manager was nominated, 77.5 wins. Padres, 83.5 wins was the over-under. Mets, 81.5 wins. Okay, all of those 3 teams grossly exceeded those numbers. The Brewers won 93 games. The Mets won 89 games. The Padres won 93 games. So if you're just looking at, like, here are preseason expectations and here's performance, the Brewers were projected to be a below 500 team. They win 93 games and win their division. But to your point, the reason this makes me so mad.
Awful division, and Pat Murphy had zero heat on him at all because Craig Counsell left.
Totally. And look, I'll say this. I think the Brewers manager deserved to win it. All of what you just said is true. Everybody expected this team to be really, really bad. They expected them to be sellers. They expected Willy Adames to get traded once the season started because that division was so bad. They end up with the Cubs and the Cardinals are, just about 500 teams. But to your point, it's a bad division. All I'm saying is, compared to preseason expectations, it's not a fair comparison because the expectations change for Dave Roberts. When you lose all of the guys that Dave Roberts does, we just talked about Mookie Betts. He only plays in 116 games. Max Muncy misses a bunch of time. Freddie Freeman misses some time. And that's not even getting into the starting pitching disaster that Dave Roberts had to navigate and manage with a rookie in Yamamoto, as well as Glasnow and the injury at the end of the season for him, River Ryan, Gavin Stone, Bobby Miller, like all of these guys going up and down. I think if you're checking in from time to time and adjusting your expectations, then it's Dave Roberts. Again, I'm not even arguing he should win. I just think he needs to be in the top 3. I think he's second. Like the fact that the Padres manager, here's why the Padres manager got nominated, because they've been a disaster for the last few years. And so they just weren't a disaster this year. highly talented. Mets, one of the most expensive franchise, payrolls. Obviously, some of those guys aren't there, but like these are teams that only had low expectations because of how bad they've been for the last couple of years. To give them credit to say, hey, we overestimated how good you should have been last year, so now we're going to lower them and then you're going to exceed them. That's crazy to me. Again, if the Brewers guy goes on to win it, like, in that situation, I'm fine with it. Dave doesn't need to win it. I just think he needs to be nominated.
Yeah, I think Pat Murphy is fine to be there, and I think he's fine to win it. But those adjustments needs to go the other way also. I think once we saw the complete meltdown of a division that the NL Central was, like those expectations should have also been adjusted. And I thought the Brewers got shafted coming into the season by those expectations. Just in terms of like the lack of respect, because one, that division's not very good. Everyone knew that coming in. And then they still had one of the more talented rosters, I thought, in that division, and absolutely should have been competing for a spot there. I never understood where that lack of expectation came from the Brewers just because Craig Counsell left.
Yeah.
I don't think managers make that big of a difference where you lose a guy like Craig Counsell and all of a sudden you're expected to tank in the standings when they didn't really lose anybody, off the playing roster.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then the Padres one's interesting to me too, because like those guys come in every single season with expectations, and people, I think the Ohtani stuff and the Glasnow stuff sort of tempered that expectation this season in terms of them winning the division. But there were plenty of people who still thought that roster was talented enough to make the playoffs, which they did. And so to be like, okay, well, that guy deserves it, but not the guy who beat him out, who also had a super talented roster with a bunch of high-paid superstars.
Yeah.
I don't get that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, whether or not he should win it is a separate conversation. But Dave Roberts being behind Mendoza and Schilt, in my estimation, is crazy. And so, again, Dave Roberts, not one of the three finalists. We have not found out who's going to win this award yet, but Dave Roberts will not be the winner. Again, it's a regular season award. I think if you included the postseason, he'd for sure have been under more consideration. But to the point that I think you made at the beginning, here's the good news. Dave Roberts won the World Series. He cares a hell of a lot more about winning the World Series than he does about whether or not he won Manager of the Year. And so we'll see who ends up winning it. But for now, all we know is that Dave Roberts will not be the 2024 National League Manager of the Year. Let's get to the latest rumors and hot stove information, Anthony. Let's talk Juan Soto and Roki Sasaki. Juan Soto is an interesting spot because we've just been hearing conflicting reports. Jeff Passan and John Heyman basically reporting different things, slightly different timelines, so it's possible the information is new. Passan reported that, quote, that the Dodgers, quote, won't chase after Soto, but would, quote, gladly consider him if his market softens. I believe he added that the Dodgers had not scheduled a meeting with Juan Soto. John Heyman, on the other hand, listed the Dodgers among 11 teams that have checked in on Soto and did say that the Dodgers are scheduled to meet with him. We don't need to do a full, breakdown of Juan Soto, the player, but would you be surprised if the Dodgers don't even meet with Juan Soto in this free agency period?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd be stunned. That would be the more surprising news of the offseason. More surprising to me than if they actually got him. And I think so. How that reporting works, and they're choosing those words very carefully.
Yeah.
And Passan saying that they won't chase him down is not the same as saying that they won't meet with him. And him saying that they don't have a meeting scheduled with him based on whenever he heard his information and who he heard it from, is couched by him saying, they would be interested if the market softened.
Yeah.
It all says the same exact thing, that the Dodgers are interested for a price.
Yeah.
And Heyman's report that they will meet with him is not surprising. Like, I totally expected them to at least meet with him. Also, Soto and Boris would be morons not to meet with any team with money.
Yeah.
And so if Boris said, we're not going to meet with you, even if Soto told him from the second that third out was made, if Soto called him and said, I will not play for that team, they would still be completely stupid to not at least meet with them, because for all they know, the Dodgers are the team that drives up the price for Soto.
Yeah. Part of me wondered when I read this, Anthony, if there's a strategy in play here from Andrew Friedman and the Dodgers, which we've seen them execute in the past, which is, I wonder if they look at Juan Soto and say, you know what? I don't actually think the market is going to develop the way that Scott Boras and Juan Soto want it to be. And so when they go and meet with the Mets and the Yankees, they're going to be disappointed by the offers, because if they're seeing these 13 years, $615 million numbers, and the numbers are closer to 550, maybe they're really disappointed. And maybe the Dodgers say, instead of being on the front line of disappointment with our offer to Juan Soto, we want to be the rebound. We want to be the team that they call and say, hey, we're actually not happy. You haven't disappointed us yet. What can you do? And that maybe the Dodgers then say, well, interesting, Juan, what if we give you 4 years and $200 million and allow you to hit the market again at a 50 million AAV? And then maybe it's not the deal you were looking for at first, but you don't have bad blood. You don't have bad vibes with the Dodgers. Like, is there any chance Andrew Friedman, instead of trying to get the first shot up, is trying to play the rebound?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I think that it's a smart strategy for one, especially when you know you don't need that guy. And the Dodgers don't need that guy. He is a massive, massive luxury. Similar to Ohtani, but not nearly. They still had a need for Ohtani, especially next year when he's be able to throw the ball for them. But Soto would be pure, just icing on the cake type of player for that roster. They don't need him at all to win again. And I was on AM 830 with Roger Lodge late last week, maybe it was. And he asked me about Soto. And I said, sort of what you kind of just alluded to, is that I don't think the market develops for him the way we thought it would, like 18 months ago. Yeah. When he was a Padre and we went like, this guy is absolutely just destined for $500 million. Like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then after Ohtani signed the $700 million deal, everybody went, it's now a no-brainer that he gets 500. I don't think so. I don't think the waters are that deep for him because of that price tag. And if it is true that he only wants to stay on the East Coast, that limits that pool even more. Like as of right now, from what it sounds like, they're not even going to schedule a meeting with the Giants, which is also, I think, is dumb, because the Giants have money and they could at least, again, leverage another East Coast team to drive the price up another 50 million or so. But, beyond that, I think that the market for him is probably a lot softer than we expect. Now, that's not to say that he's going to get, $150 million. He's going to sign for a huge, huge contract. It might even be the biggest free agent contract outside of Ohtani. Yeah. I think Mike Trout's
present value might be the highest number.
And Trout has a $400 million plus extension. Soto could be the first free agent outside of Ohtani to get a contract that starts with the 4, but I don't think it's in the 5 or 6 the way we maybe thought.
You don't even think it starts with the 5. The Athletic is projecting 13 years, $611 million.
I don't think he gets it. Now, I could be wrong. It only takes one team. Takes one team. But I think that the pool of teams willing to play in that pond is significantly smaller than it was for a guy like Ohtani.
Yeah.
Because he's also destined to be a DH sooner rather than later. And anyone who watched the playoffs understands why.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I think, I disagree that the number is going to start with a 4. I'm not sure it's going to start with a 6, but I think it's going to start with a 5 at the very least. And I would guess over 550 if I had to. Of course, if he ends up signing for less years and the AAV ends up being higher, who knows how that all plays out. But
the AAV is honestly what I care about more too, Jeff. Yeah. I think that matters a little more now to a lot of these guys. And I think you were right with what you said earlier. I think he breaks that bank, probably for anyone outside of Ohtani, he becomes the winner in that race.
Well, and even Ohtani's present day value AAV is only like 43, 44 million. So if Soto's not getting any deferrals, there's a decent chance that on a short-term deal, his number would be higher than that.
It would be surprising if there were no deferrals in his deal.
Well, if the Dodgers don't sign him, I don't know if it'd be that surprising. $47 million a year, by the way, is what the Athletic is projecting for 13 years, which is crazy. But the Dodgers are going to want deferrals. Scott Boras is not going to want deferrals. And so that might be the loggerheads. Let's switch over. Oh, go ahead real quick. Last thought.
I was going to say, I think for any team, I would be surprised if there's no deferrals. There are a lot more deferrals in guys' contracts than we realize. We just know of Ohtani's because it was so massive. A lot of these guys with these long-term deals have at least some money deferred. And that's what I'm talking about. I think if there's no money deferred, especially when you start talking about $500 million, no matter the length of the contract, that would be surprising because there is that tax now and teams have been treating it like a hard cap. So if you don't defer that money, you really start to hamstring yourself, especially for a team like, let's say, the Mets, who don't really have any pitching.
Yeah. Zip code 0 with the super chat. Why did Adames come here lose steam? I'm not sure. Like, I think at this point, it's all speculation. So I wouldn't read into too much gaining steam, losing steam, because I think of a lot of it is so early in the process that it's impossible to know what they're actually going to do. I'm curious where you're at on Willy Adames, Anthony. Is he a guy like in the 6-year, $150 million range that you're interested in?
Well, I would not be interested for that price. Okay. He's 30, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he ages well. Also, in the wave of like drunken euphoria that we were all in right after the right after the World Series, did I see that he was asked to play third base if he comes here?
I do not know. He's 29, by the way. I don't know his birthday, so I'll look that up. Okay. But he's 29 years old, and 6 for 150 was the athletic projection.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying he can't get that. I'm saying he probably shouldn't get that from the Dodgers.
Okay. And why is that?
I don't think he ages well. I don't think he ages well for a shortstop. I think we're already seeing, like, the power numbers were there, and that's fine. But, like, okay. The Dodgers have that. Like, they have that in spades. Like, they're the best offensive team in baseball.
Yeah.
And so I think for that price, let me say this. I think that money is better spent in other places.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not to say that
I agree.
Also, like, you could just go get a center fielder, and then that solves your shortstop problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And the hard part with center field is there are no center fielders in the top. If you look at like the top 40 or 50 free agents, there are no center fielders. There's a few shortstops. Ha-Sung Kim is another guy that's on that list. I mean, Gleyber Torres, I guess, if you really want to go down that route. I'm not saying those guys are good. I'm just saying those are all more highly ranked on free agency lists than the top center fielder is. I'm with you. The number scares me. Adames was really good this year. 119 weighted runs created plus. Obviously, we know the defense is very good. To your point, the defense is not going to get better as time goes on. He has said he's open to moving off of shortstop eventually. This is a guy that just a year ago was a 94 weighted runs created plus guy. The year before that was 109. So that's a lot of money for a guy that in the last 3 years has had well above average offensive season. It happened to be last year, so that matters. But
he also did it in a absolutely hitter's cavern.
Yeah. And on a team with low expectations and
I covered games there. When that roof is closed, the ball is a missile off the bat. Yeah. And that helps guys. Guys have, once the Brewers got like relevant, guys were very much okay going there on a contract season.
Because they wanted to put up some numbers.
Yes.
I mean, he graded out, like, it's funny to look at his baseball savant page. Expected batting average, exit velocity, hard hit rate, chase rate, whiff rate, strikeout rate, all below average. Expected slug, barrel rate, bat speed, walk rate, all above average. So he's like kind of 50, like the bad is really bad and the good is really good with him. And there doesn't seem to be anything in the middle. So I know Scott and Blake really like Willy Adames. Sadly, neither of them are on here to defend him, but I think I'm with you. I would rather, we're going to talk starting pitching in a little bit. I would much rather invest that $25 million a year in going and getting a starting pitcher.
Yeah. And to say where I stand on this, if Adames becomes a Dodger, I'm totally fine with that. I'm not saying the guy stinks and they should never even flirt with that idea. I'm saying for like 6 and 150, don't sign me up for that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Zip code 0 says, if we don't trade for Cochet, we're going to talk about that. Can Rushing go to the outfield? I would say that Dalton Rushing being a opening day starter in left field is not a hot take for the Dodgers. I'm not saying it's the most likely scenario in the world, but don't be surprised if Dalton Rushing is starting in an corner outfield spot for the Dodgers on opening day. That's what I would say, Anthony.
Yeah, there was a reason they moved him there so late in the season. That idea crossed a lot of people's minds, and they wanted to see what things look like at least then. And they're going to look at what it looks like all winter long, because I'm sure they're going to be having eyes on him. And then they'll see what it looks like in spring training. Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing, by the way, back to the Adames conversation that I think is just a note, and I'm not saying you should bank on this. MLB.com currently has Alex Freeland as the Dodgers' number 3 prospect in the organization. Obviously, we know the Dodgers have a well-respected prospect pool, And so they have a guy who is a shortstop, ETA projected 2025. I'm not saying they shouldn't sign Willy Adames because they have a guy who might eventually be the answer at shortstop. I just think we'll learn a lot maybe about what the Dodgers think about a guy like Alex Freeland with how they handle this. Gavin Lux was a guy they penciled into shortstop and it bit him, right? They ended up with a couple of years. They were scrambling to try and fill that spot. So I absolutely am not saying that they should just bank on him. And no, they should not have kept Trey Sweeney, to the Dodger Blue moderator that's in this account. That was not the answer. I know he was starting playoff games. He wasn't starting them well. But it's possible that Tommy Edman for one more year at shortstop gives them another year of evaluation for Freeland, maybe some opportunities to just test him out and see how that goes. And then a year from now, you figure it out. So just something to throw out. Let's talk Roki Sasaki, though, because he's next on this list. And the latest on Roki Sasaki is this. Former teammate in the NPB, Dallas Keuchel, quote, "I heard some rumblings about a done deal with the Dodgers," was his quote. There's a full write-up on DodgerBlue.com. It's worth your time. Keuchel saying, I heard it might be a done deal with Sasaki to the Dodgers. This is in line with what we've heard all along. Bob Nightingale joked that all 30 teams expect the Dodgers to sign him. Here's kind of the angle I wanted to ask you about. Everybody thinks Sasaki is signing with the Dodgers. Does everybody think Sasaki is signing with the Dodgers because there's an actual fire somewhere, Anthony, or because every single person is regurgitating the exact same smoke that we've already seen?
Well, I think the Dodgers themselves have let it be known that there's serious interest there. Like this is one like that they have not sort of just brushed off. This is one that they've actually let people in on into their thinking and said, yes, we would be very interested if he posted. Yeah. Typically, when the Dodgers say something like that, it means they're going to go hard at somebody. And I will say this: with the pool money they have, the players who are already on their roster, and the relationship they have with that league, I think it makes total sense that the Dodgers are the front runner. Now, if 4 executives and 3 of them had teams that were interested in this guy, all said the Dodgers, they might be playing the reverse psychology game. But when like 29 other guys, 25, even 20 even, are all saying the same thing, something's cooking. They're hearing something. And whether that's completely accurate or not, they're at least hearing it from people they think are somewhat in the know or somewhat credible. That's not to say that the Dodgers will sign him. I just think that it's a realistic conclusion that that they would be the front runners, because they also, I think, at the moment have the most money to offer.
Yeah, if he is posted before December 2nd, the Dodgers would be able to offer him the most money. If he's posted after December 2nd, but before December 15th, then he could sign in 2025 when the Dodgers would actually have the least amount of money, at least in theory, before some verbal agreements. The concern, I'm with you. I think they are the front runners. Without a doubt, I think the Dodgers are the front runners. I think everybody is connecting some dots that make sense. The part that concerns me, Anthony, is that I haven't heard really anybody actually source anything other than talking to people who actually don't know anything, right? Like if the Reds GM thinks Roki Sasaki is going to sign with the Dodgers, that doesn't mean anything to me, because there's a decent chance that person is reading the same things that I am. Like, even if they're connected to agents, those agents are reading. If Roki Sasaki, and even the guys in Japan, Jim Allen, who we had on, like, none of these people have sources connected to Sasaki. Nobody has ever said sources close to Sasaki say ... The thing that worries me is that everybody is just making assumptions, and those assumptions might be good and they might end up being right. I just worry that maybe we're getting ahead of the sourcing on this.
I also think that you're underestimating the contacts that Major League Baseball executives have for stuff like this.
But I mean, like, I'm saying even the guys in Japan who are closest, would be theoretically closest to this guy, like, nothing's sourced. Like, nothing is sourced. It's all people familiar with the Dodgers thinking or whatever.
Yeah, but you don't know that, because that's like saying a guy. That's like saying,
if you had to source, somebody would say it. Somebody would say sources close to Sasaki.
No, because they're not. I'm coming from this as a reporter, and I disagree with you here. If I talk to that source specifically, then yes. But if I'm talking to Executive A, who I know that team is interested in this guy, and I say, hey, what are the rumblings here? And he goes, the source we have in Japan is telling us this thing.
Yeah.
That reporter is not necessarily going to out the executive who's supposed to be anonymous by saying the guy who talked to this person.
But you're saying that reporter wouldn't reference at all. Like, hey, source is close to.
No, his reference is the executive who he's trusting as a source himself. So, like, again, to get too deep into those weeds, you risk burning that source and that executive who is not supposed to be talking to you about that player.
It's fair. I mean, look, you've done this more than me. I just, until I read something that is close to Sasaki, and because this happens,
it's like saying if Ohtani signs with the Dodgers, go ahead.
I was just saying you might be right, but like it goes back to John Heyman's sourcing of the Dodgers are interested in Juan Soto, and it was a person familiar with the Dodgers thinking says the Dodgers are in, and you actually read the article. And again, whether you think John Heyman is a reputable source or not you personally or anybody out here, but Heyman, you actually read the quote and it was like, well, they're in on everybody. I'm like, that's not a source. Like I could have told you they're in on everybody.
Well, there's a difference between a headline and what the story says. I think you all can understand that. Like the writers typically don't write their own headlines.
Yeah.
But to say like, well, they're not hearing it from the people in Japan who would technically be closer to the situation is like saying, well, if Ohtani's rumored to come to the Dodgers now, I don't believe it because an Angels beat writer didn't break that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. That, and the question again that I'm starting with and you're answering, which I appreciate, is there actual fire here or is it just smoke? And you're saying you think there's real fire here because you're reading between the lines of some of the sourcing and the quoting and saying, I don't think this many people would be saying the same thing unless at least some of the reputable people had sourcing. Like Kylie McDaniel's a perfect example. He said the Dodgers are the favorite. Kylie McDaniel says that. There's probably something to it, even if he doesn't say, and here's why I think it. Fair?
Fair. And also, these guys in today's day and age are looking for the clickbait. The clickbait is not the Dodgers anymore. The clickbait is the New York Mets are the front runner, says somebody that I talked to. And so like the fact that these guys are all hearing the same thing means there's a lot of smoke there. Cause I think that was the question. Was there real smoke there? These guys are all going like, oh, what about the Blue Jays? Or, what about the Cardinals or whatever? They're looking for that other team that's not the Dodgers to really make a headline. And it's not coming up for them yet.
Yeah. And I want to be clear, even if people are making assumptions, I think they're the right assumptions to make. Like people are doing the same math that all of us are doing, which is if he gets posted in the next couple of weeks, the Dodgers can offer him the most money. The Dodgers offer him the greatest chance of success. The Dodgers can give him a 6-man rotation. The Dodgers have Yamamoto and Ohtani. Like the Dodgers can give him the greatest platform to go and make marketing dollars on top of his very small major league salary. Like all of those things are true. And so even if that's all you had and no sourcing, I don't think you're going to be led super far astray, which in some ways makes it funny. We'll never know if the sourcing was good or the assumptions were right. But I think that's why I ask the question, because when Bob Nightingale says all 30 teams think this, we've seen it in sports, right? Where the reason all 30 teams think it is because all 30 teams are talking to the same people, and whether or not those people have the right information or not remains to be seen. But again, so far, let me land the plane with this. You tell me if you agree. Is there any reason for Dodger fans to be worried about Roki Sasaki coming to the Dodgers based on what you've seen or read?
Worried that it happens?
Like worried that it doesn't happen. Like I think there's a high confidence that he's going to be a Dodger by a lot of people. Would you caution any of that given what you have seen or read?
No, I wouldn't. I think if he posts by the date, I think you said it was December 2nd.
Yeah, December 2nd.
I think they are the clear favorites. I think that is pretty clear. If they don't land him for whatever reason, maybe he doesn't post or they post him later and the Dodgers don't go after him or can't offer him as much. I'm not worried about the rotation. I think they still do things that are significant to address it.
Yeah. And that's a great tease to a conversation we're going to have here in just a second. Laura, real quick with the super chat, hashtag bring back Teo. I assume you're all in on bringing back Teoscar Hernandez. Is that a fair assumption here, Anthony?
Next question. Laura's got my hashtag. Yes.
There you go. Look, and I understand that part of the reason the Soto thing is so sensitive is because Soto would come at the expense of bringing Teoscar Hernandez back. So I get it. And look, I will be thrilled if Teoscar Hernandez is a Dodger. Simply put.
I did read something interesting though to talk about this. I saw something. It was a theory, but it makes sense that all the teams, every single team that would be interested in Soto and they miss on him. Yeah. So say it's 7 teams. The other 6 teams who don't get him, their first call would be to Teo's agent after that.
Yeah.
That gets a little scary, because it's it's a lot easier for that front office to go, well, we just offered, $445 million. What's 150 for Teoscar Hernandez? Like, sure, but come on down.
No, it's a great point. I think the advantage there is that he really badly wants to be a Dodger.
And he has a qualifying offer.
And he has the qualifying offer. So I think that's a great point. All right, let's talk starting pitching. And Brandon Gomes, GM of the Dodgers, has said that starting pitching is a, quote, a major need for the Dodgers. Obviously, Clayton Kershaw expected to be re-signed after opting out of his player option to renegotiate. I think just to open up a 40-man roster spot for a few months. That's my guess. Walker Buehler, a free agent. Jack Flaherty, a free agent. Putting those guys aside, there's 3 major guys at the top of the free agent list, Anthony, and then 1 guy via trade that we're going to talk about here, who I think are options, and the Dodgers, I would imagine, are at least expected to be interested in. And so we're going to play a game, one of my favorite games, the blind resume game. I'm going to give you 3 players. I'm going to give you key information about each of them. You tell me which of these 3 that you might be the most interested in, okay? We got player A, player B, and player C. Player A is entering his age 32 season. Over the last 3 years, these are his numbers. He's averaged 25 starts a year and 135 innings pitched. He has a 2.82 ERA and a 2.98 FIP. FIP is just a predictive number. So basically looking at the underlying metrics, how good should he have been? So 2.98, incredible. 12 strikeouts per 9, 4.2 walks per 9. In the postseason, 48.2 career innings, 3.33 ERA. The Athletic is projecting player A to get a contract of 4 years and $110 million. Okay, player B, 31, so a year younger, 25 starts, 145 innings pitched on average over the last 3 years. 2.8 ERA, 3.03 FIP, 8.5 strikeouts per 9, 2.2 walks per 9, a 5.1 ERA in 67 innings in the postseason, in case you were interested. And 5 years and $140 million is the projection there. Player C, 30 years old, entering his age 30 season, I should clear. Just 32 starts, 197 innings pitched on average over the last 3 years. That number is insane.
That's crazy.
A 3.08 ERA, a 3.49 FIP, 9.5 strikeouts per 9, 2.5 walks per 9, 2.33 ERA in 27 career innings of postseason baseball. Obviously, a lot of people are going to be able to figure out who player A, B, and C are. I included at the top to help you. Player A and player B are lefties. Player C is a righty. I'm curious, Anthony, just looking at these numbers, probably knowing exactly who I'm already talking about in each of these cases. What jumps out to you? What stands out? What grabs your attention most?
The 197 innings.
Okay.
And the 32 starts. Screams durability through the age 30 season and gives me pause for ages 31 through 35.
Yeah. It's 62 more innings a year than player A. It's 52 innings more a year than player B. You mentioned also a year younger. This is a player who just turned 33 weeks ago. So again, he'll be playing his age 30 season. That's reflected in the fact that player C is expected to get 7 years and $217 million. If you've been playing along with us, player A, no surprise, is Blake Snell. Player B is Max Fried. And player C is Corbin Burns. I'm curious, does any of that surprise you? Seeing those names attached to those numbers, does anything jump out to you? Because I have one observation, but I'll let you go first.
The Burns deal, I think that projected money is higher than I think he will end up with.
Okay.
I think the days of giving a 30-year-old that much money, who just plays one side of the ball, let me preface by saying that, especially as a pitcher, are sort of falling by the wayside. Again, it only takes one team. It only takes the New York Mets. I mean, what? It only takes one team, probably the Mets. But I think that's why the AAV is such a big thing now. That's why I mentioned it earlier. Like, that is sort of the winner now. I think that if you can, as an agent and as a player, if you can get the AAV up, guys are it's a lot easier to swallow taking the fewer years, and the same for teams. And I think it's a compromise that both sides are willing to live with. I think they want that. I think Burns and his people want that, the length and the money, but I don't think it gets that high for him.
Yeah.
If he were 28, I think that's a different story. But again, there's going to be a durability question, because just because you've been durable to this point, all it does is make teams wonder when that ends.
If that number was 29, would you feel different about this? Because he literally is 3 weeks from being 29 years old. He will not be 31 until after next season.
Yeah, no, because it's still the same mileage.
Yeah. It's fair. What stands out to me, and I don't know if I expected this, is I want to be nice about this. I'm not that interested in Max Fried when I look at these numbers. Like, I look at these three guys next to each other, and the durability is basically the same for Snell and Fried.
Mm-hmm.
The strikeout rate terrifies me. 8.5 strikeouts for a guy who's 31 going into his 31 season. He turns 31 in 2 months, so it'll be his 31 age season that he's entering. I just don't see why you would sign Max Fried instead of Blake Snell. That's the best reason. Like, if I'm looking at two lefties and I'm looking at those two guys next to each other, yes, Blake Snell is a year older. He's about to turn 32. Fried is about to turn 31. He's a year older. Their durability, basically a push. ERA the last 3 years, basically a push. One guy strikes a crap load of dudes out. The other one doesn't walk anybody. And Snell has done it in the postseason, and I get one of those guys for a year and $30 million less than the other. Like, what's the talk me into for Max Fried compared to Blake Snell?
For me, there's not one.
I should clarify. Fried is the number, the Athletic. Again, I just picked the Athletic. I like their stuff.
Sure.
Fried is the number 4 free agent. Blake Snell's the number 5 free agent. So they have Fried as a better free agent.
And that's strictly an age thing.
It's possible, for sure.
Strictly an age thing. I can tell you that. From a Dodger perspective, the number on there on this entire chart that I think that pulls their eye is the 4 years.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were going to say playoff ERA. 4 years too.
That's the years. It's the years.
Yeah.
They want to give guys like this as few years as possible, and they're okay if the AAV goes up.
So rank these three guys for me.
From a Dodger perspective.
At cost. Like, if you're the Dodgers and you got to sign those contracts at the bottom of this chart, and I say, give me your first choice, second choice, and third choice, what would they be?
And
I'll go first if you want.
You can go first. My one question is, we are not talking Buehler, Flaherty. We're like, those things are outside of the mind.
Flaherty you can include. Like, I'll be honest. I think Flaherty is not in the tier of guys that we're talking about right here.
Agree. Yeah.
And so if I'm like, Buehler set aside, Kershaw set aside. Like, I think those guys are in their own. If they want to come back, they come back.
Okay. And I think my answer, that question, the reason I ask it is because my answer would depend on, like, maybe if Buehler is in this rotation, that may change my answer.
Okay. And I should be clear too. Sasaki is number 1 on this list for me. If Roki Sasaki can be a Dodger, he's number 1. And I would say, thanks for coming. Like, if you said, hey, Sasaki, Snell, Fried, Burns, Flaherty, you got to pick one, rank those guys 1 to 5. Sasaki's number 1 for me. Is that same for you?
Same. Yeah.
Cost, age, all of it. Okay. I've got Blake Snell second. And I'll say this. The Dodgers kicked the tires on Blake Snell a year ago, reportedly. They kicked the tires on Blake Snell at the deadline, reportedly. I understand I'm not the biggest Blake Snell guy in the world. The 4.2 walks terrifies me. But this is a guy that, like, you just look at, the years is the least. 25 starts a year, 135 innings pitched isn't amazing. But again, compared to, like, a guy like Max Fried, it's not all that different. The ERA has been fantastic. He's a lefty. Snell is 1 for me. Corbin Burns would be 2 for me. You pointed out, I don't love 7 years. I don't love $217 million, but holy crap, 32 starts a year and 200 innings a year for 3 straight years for a guy who just is about to turn 30, has been fantastic, has been durable, strikes a bunch of guys out, doesn't walk anybody, and is just a horse. Like, he's just a guy that's going to take the ball every 5th day or 6th if you're the Dodgers. I like that. Fried would be 3rd on the list. So I would go Sasaki, Snell, Burns, Fried would be my list.
Yep.
You agree?
Yes, same.
Okay.
Same. I don't like, I love the years on that. Like, I think
Yeah.
the Dodgers love that too. They would love if they could even get him down to 3 with like an option, for
Yeah.
a fourth. And maybe they pay him, 130 or something like that. But I think Snell is on this list as the number one. And then while you don't love the years, I think sometimes you have to swallow it and say, you know what? If this is the guy that gets us back to back, helps us get us back to back. Also, the durability, you really got to talk yourself into like he's going to keep being this guy, right?
Yeah.
And that matters because they are essentially going to run out of 6-man rotation again. And that absolutely matters, especially when you have guys like Yamamoto, Glass now, assuming he's back for next season, and who's that other guy that they have too? Ohtani.
Oh yeah, he's decent.
Yeah, and so that durability, a guy who can take the ball every turn, that matters. So then I think you take those 7 years, you try to talk him down if you can, but if that's the number, 7 years, 217, he's the number 2. And I think if Fried is then your option, if it ends up being Fried is the guy who's left for you, you hammer other options, whether that be a trade or something like that.
Look at this, just setting the table. It's like Chris Paul over here playing the point guard. Let's throw a wrench into this. Let's talk about the guy who's supposed to be the best starting pitcher that's reportedly available on the trade market. It's a gentleman by the name of Garrett Crochet, and I'll throw him into this chart. What would Garrett Crochet look like in this chart? Now, 25 years old. He's entering. His age doesn't turn 26 until the middle of next season. Last season, 32 starts, 146 innings pitched. Yes, he made 7 more starts than Snell and Fried have averaged. And yes, he pitched basically the same number of innings. That's not a typo there. Crap load of strikeouts, not a whole lot of walks. That is, again, not for him. It's unfair because it's a 1-year sample rather than a 3-year average. Has never pitched in the postseason. It has 2 years of team control. So cheap for the next 2 years. We're probably talking about a guy that's making like $20 million at the most over the next 2 years. Here's the bio on Crochet. Prior to 2024, had made 72 career appearances, all of them as a reliever. 2.7 ERA, 3.2 whip, FIP, 10.5 strikeouts, 5 walks, 1.5 career WAR. 2024, undergoes Tommy John surgery in 2022, missed most of 2023 as well, through just 12.2 innings in those 2 years combined. 2024, however, comes back as a starter, 32 starts, 146 innings, 3.5 ERA, 2.7 FIP, 13 strikeouts per 9, 2 walks per 9, 4.7 wins above replacement. This is a guy who was a first-round pick out of the University of Tennessee. Because it was 2020, he went to the alternate site and then immediately pitched in the majors. This guy never pitched in the minor leagues one single time before debuting. Obviously, the alternate site made part of that possible. Undergoes Tommy John surgery, as I mentioned. Has never thrown more than 65 innings in a season prior to last year, including college, including his college career, had dealt with injuries to the point that he had never thrown more than 65 innings in a season prior to last year. John Heyman reported at the trade deadline last year that he would refuse to pitch in the postseason unless he was given a contract extension. That can't be ignored. And the trade price would be expensive. I'll throw this out as a trade proposal, and then I'll share what a couple of our friends over at Dodger Blue said. I think the template for a trade would be something like Gavin Lux, Josue DePaula, Maddox Bruns, and James Outman. Now, Blake and Scott said that they think you'd have to replace Maddox Bruns with a guy like Jackson Ferris. So it would be Lux plus 2 of the top 5 prospects in the Dodgers organization, as well as a guy like James Outman, possibly. But that would be the cost. So yes, it would not cost you dollars. It would cost you a whole heck of a lot in prospects. Given all of that information, Anthony, are you at all interested in pursuing a trade for Garrett Crochet, who, to be fair, was one of the best pitchers in baseball last year at the age of, he's 25 and turns 26 in the middle of next season. Also a lefty.
Yeah. I thought he was good. I didn't think he was great.
Yeah.
So I think my answer here, if these are your options, the comment about the extension or he wouldn't pitch in the postseason was a very quick turnoff for me.
Yeah.
It told me that he was, if that was true, it screams me first guy.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers have worked really hard to build the clubhouse that doesn't house those kinds of players. They've built a really interesting culture there. I think one that is the envy of a lot of teams in both leagues. So I would say, in all honesty, no. And I would rather go after Snell.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. The trade deadline deal is like a total deal breaker for me. We just saw Walker Buehler take the ball on 1 day rest and say, screw my arm, screw my free agency. That's what I want. That's the ethos I want in my clubhouse.
Yeah.
There's a reason he's still here and Max Scherzer is wherever the heck he is, nursing his little elbow and blaming everybody else for all of his problems. So I'm with you. That was a major turnoff to me. The fact that he's dealt with injuries, like I understand from a personal business decision why he said it. Like
sure.
I don't like personally, if he wants to explain it to me, I'd say, look, I get it, bud. I just don't want that energy in my clubhouse. I don't want that ethos in my clubhouse. The fact that the guy prior to last year had never thrown more than 65 innings in a season. Like if I was a White Sox, I'd be trying to cash in on this guy too.
Absolutely.
You have no idea what the next injury is going to be.
Yes.
What's that?
It's a lottery ticket for them.
Totally. And I would cash it in. And there's a reason they're trying to cash it in. He's under team control for 2 more years. There's bad vibes. So I understand it. For me, Anthony, if I'm ranking all of the 5 guys we've mentioned, Sasaki, the 3 free agents, and Crochet, it would be Sasaki 1. It would be Snell 2. It'd be Burns 3. Crochet would be 4. I would still have him ahead of Max Fried in my estimation, but that would be my list.
Yeah. And, the Dodgers at some point have to look in the mirror too and go, this is a guy whose innings history and injury history is what it is. We don't have the best track record of keeping these guys healthy.
Yeah.
Is that good for us right now?
Yeah.
And again, I think the answer is no for him.
I have to point out, somebody, the moderator tonight, pointed out that Matt Moreno also sent me a trade proposal. Lux, Cartaya, Outman, Michael Grove, and Bobby Miller was his proposal for Crochet. I'm not sure that gets it done, but I want to clarify. My apologies to Matt, who's not watching. I'm sure he's definitely not the moderator tonight. I did like what Blake said, which was basically like, if you feel good about the trade, then it's probably not enough. I see some people saying hell no to Josue DePaula. I think from a trade proposal, I think Dalton Rushing is off limits. And if you've been following any of the hype on Zaire Hope, who's one of the guys who came over in the Michael Busch trade, I think he might be off limits. Like the things that are being said about him are bonkers town. So I think those 2 guys are off limits. I think DePaula is really close to off limits, but you're just not going to get Crochet without including probably one of those 3 guys. And DePaula might be the quote unquote most expendable and yet very, very painful of the 3 would be my guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Let's get to some super chats here. Jonathan says starting pitchers are like NFL running backs now. Don't spend on them. Yeah, I mean, again, this would probably lead you to 4 years and $140 million for Blake Snell. I would rather spend money than prospects on starting pitching, I guess is ultimately where I land. But I don't think you're wrong. I mean, they traded for Glass now. It had red flags. Here's one other conversation, Anthony. This is actually a good topic. I actually wonder if, like, there have been jokes made that I said there's a lot of red flags with Crochet, and somebody responded, I'll keep these anonymous. Somebody responded with Andrew Friedman loves red flags on players. There have been comments that they're going to reevaluate their process. I wonder if a guy like Crochet may have been somebody they were interested in or would have been interested in 12 months ago, but that maybe they are now less interested in because of 24. Do you think there's any chance that that's true?
I think there's part of that that's true.
Okay.
I do think there's part of that that's true. They're less desperate now, but I don't think that means they're going to be less aggressive, if that makes sense. There's a difference between those 2 things. One, you spend foolishly, and the other one, you try to spend. And everyone tries to do it as wisely as possible, and sometimes you get backed into the wall or backed into a corner. That's why I think Soto is probably they flirt with Soto and they meet with Soto, but they're not like, they don't go after Soto the way they went after Ohtani.
Yeah.
They don't go after Soto the way they went after Yamamoto or Glasnow. I think those are differences there. And I think when the right deal comes along, we have to give this front office credit that they have not been afraid to spend capital that they do have.
Yeah.
And in more times than not, we as Dodger fans have come away going, that's all they gave up for that guy?
They've nailed it. We couldn't believe the Flaherty trade. We did a live show, and even in a market where prices were through the roof, I couldn't believe what they ended up giving for Flaherty. And obviously, Flaherty wasn't a perfect player, but he ended up helping them out a lot and coming up big in some key moments. Zip Code Zero says, "What about Shane Bieber? Bieber had Tommy John surgery about 7 months ago, so that's something to keep in mind. 2023 was also." I know how good he was back in 2022. This is a guy who had a 2.88 ERA in 31 starts, 200 innings. 2023 was really rough. If you look at some of the underlying metrics, average exit velocity, he was in the 2nd percentile. So it's like one of the worst pitchers in baseball at allowing hard contact. Expected batting average, 8th percentile. The fastball velocity was the 13th percentile. Expected ERA was 25th percentile. Hard hit rate, 3rd percentile. So he wasn't walking anybody. He got a lot of ground balls, and everything else was really, really bad. So I don't think the Dodgers are going to be in the dumpster diving reclamation project business this year, because my guess is they're going to have guys that are way better options. Like Walker Buehler is not a dumpster diving option, but they're probably going to have him sort of fill that role, so to speak. I would say Clayton Kershaw in the same bucket. Those guys are going to fill the Noah Syndergaard, James Paxton role, would be my hope. So Jonathan says, who's the last huge money starting pitcher that looks like a good deal now? Cole? He said, not Glasnow, Rodon, DeGrom, Strasburg, Corbin. Only Phillies and Jays do it well. Look, you're not wrong. I mean, Garrett Cole is I don't know. I would imagine Yankees aren't. They're somewhere. They're not, I wouldn't say they're like massively disappointed in Garrett Cole, but I think your point on a lot of these other guys is fair. I mean, Jordan Montgomery was a disaster a year ago. Glasnow, again, there were lots of stretches this year when people said he was one of the best pitchers in baseball, and supposedly he's going to be ready for opening day. So, like, I don't know if I think there are Dodger fans that aren't totally out on Glasnow, especially if he's ready for opening day, even if he wasn't available at the end of the season. But I think Jonathan's point is a fair one, Anthony.
Yeah, and it's why I said earlier that the days of those long, that Corbin Burns looking contract are getting fewer and far between. And teams would rather give fewer years and more money per year than offer those long-term kinds of contracts, because they've seen too many times. The baseball system is rigged to benefit ownership. And we haven't gotten into this conversation since I've been on DodgerHeads. I'm sure we will this winter because it's a thing that just comes up. But when you have to give 6 years of service time, sometimes 7, if the years and the numbers fall right for the team, then these guys come out, by the nature of baseball, in their late 20s if they're lucky.
Yeah.
And when you're looking for 6, 7, 8 year kinds of deals as a pitcher, teams have learned from those mistakes, and they're just not going to give those kinds of deals anymore to guys that they think basically they're not going to pay for past production. They're trying as much as they can to pay for future production. And a lot of those contracts that you talked about there are players who were paid on past production and didn't necessarily project out to be like they're going to continue to be this guy for the next 4 seasons. And so I think that trade and extensions, the way they have been now for position players, are going to be the way to go. Like superstar hitters, now rarely reach free agency.
Yeah, it's true, which is what makes like the Juan Soto situation so unique.
Absolutely.
I would say, I mean, keep in mind with free agency, and this is the case for pitchers and hitters, you're underpaying for the first half of the contract and you're overpaying for the back half of the contract. And so, like, it's hard to evaluate. Like, if we're looking at year 5 or year 6 of like a 7-year contract, it's probably going to look ugly, because the team would say, hey, for the first 3 or 4 years, we hope to get value. Like, I look at 2 guys who signed contracts last year. Aaron Nola, Luis Castillo are both guys who signed big-ish contracts a year ago. And I would guess both those teams are pretty happy. Nola, 200 innings, 33 starts, 3.5 ERA. Like Luis Castillo for the Mariners was in a similar 30 starts, 175 innings, 3.6 ERA. So both of those guys in year 1 of, in Nola's case, a 7-year contract. In Castillo's case, I believe it was like a 5-year contract, both those guys met expectations, if not, and both those teams would be thrilled, I would say, with the years they got. And so we'll see how this year's class pans out. But I do think there are some examples there of at least in the short term where maybe they work out. Mike says, McCullough, the Marlins coach, maybe he just gives us Jesus Luzardo. That guy doesn't have a whole lot of good players down in Miami, so I'm just going to guess that he's not interested. That said, he's probably very familiar with some of the Dodgers' younger players. And so if the Marlins were trying to move on from Luzardo, it's possible there's a couple players he's attached to in the Dodgers system, maybe even guys like Lux or Outman, MLB level-ish players that he's seen where he'd say, hey, I'd like to bring that guy down here to be a part of the culture, whatever. So I do think having a manager that's familiar with the Dodger system, Anthony, might be helpful in a trade because he's familiar with some of the guys. He knows the inside scouting reports on some of the prospects as well. But I imagine he also is very interested in just keeping Jesus Luzardo and not trading him away.
Yeah. I mean, could benefit you, but again, there's not a lot of guys on that roster that you're going after. So it probably doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Fair. All right, let's get to some questions. We got about 5 to 10 more minutes here to take some questions. We appreciate all the folks, 2,900 people in here, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter combined. Thank you for joining us. I've mentioned this before. We now have our off-season schedule fully underway. Tuesday nights at 7:10, Anthony and myself. Thursday nights, Scott and Blake. And then Sunday nights at 8:30, myself and Matthew Moreno most of the time, but maybe a rotating cast filling in with me there. So Tuesdays, Thursdays, Sundays, live shows. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, we will have shorts for you that are new and fresh. I referenced it at the beginning. A Dodgers player on with me tomorrow morning. So not a massive name, but a guy that I think will give you good insight into what it was like to be in the clubhouse, to be a part of the parade. And I said, even in the bullpen when Walker Buehler walked down there. So if you've got any questions, here we go. David with the food question right off the bat. Crab cakes, yes or no, Anthony? Crab cakes, yes or no?
Huge yes. Huge yes. Okay. One of my things, my family knows this too. If we go to a place and I've never eaten there and they have crab cakes, I'm getting them because I need to put them on my list of who has the best crab cakes. Sometimes they're terrible, sometimes they're great, but if they're on the menu as an appetizer, I'm ordering it.
Okay, crab cakes or lobster rolls if you had to choose? You a crab cakes guy, it sounds like?
No, I'm a lobster roll guy.
Okay. Wow. Okay, I'm with you.
So I'll
hot
say
or
this.
Cold?
I like them. I like them warm. Yeah, I like them warm. They don't have to be piping hot. But and I'm a butter guy. I said everybody knows I don't do mayonnaise. So I'm not. I don't do that kind. But one other thing that I'll let everybody know about me, aside from I order crab cakes all the time if they're on the menu, is that anytime I'm celebrating something like personal, promotion or something like that, I'm looking this place up. So hang in there with me because it's literally on my phone right now. I was just looking at it.
Is this the best crab cakes you've ever had?
It is the best lobster roll I've ever had.
Oh, okay.
So
in California,
the first time I had it, I was in Seattle.
Okay.
And I looked it up. They're on Gold. After I left Seattle that trip, I looked it up. They're on Gold Belly. And for anybody who doesn't know, that's like a place that you can go to, and a bunch of restaurants from all over the country are on there, and they'll deliver to you like overnight. It's called Pike Place Chowder in Seattle. I mean, maybe
you've done Gold Belly and it holds up.
What's that?
And you've ordered the Gold Belly version of this, so if somebody wanted to try it, and it holds up.
Yes.
What are we talking? Like $30 for a lobster roll at that point?
Oh, like 50.
Okay. Fair.
That's why I said it's only like for special occasions. But what they do is they send you the meat, they send you the bread, and and then they give you like very specific instructions. Here's what you do with the meat. Here's what you do with the drawn butter. Here's how you make here's how you heat up the bread, like all of that stuff. So it tastes as much as it possibly can, like theirs. Fantastic place.
I love it. Canoe wants to know, did you all plan the 2 black Nike jackets? We did not. Just two guys with decent style. That's all I got to say. DM24. What about Eovaldi? Dependable former Dodger prospect, playoff performer, won't break the bank or cost years. Any interest in Nathan Eovaldi for you?
Not really, because I think that they have enough of those kinds of guys already making their way back.
Yeah. I kind of agree. I think the only starting pitching that they should go out and get are guys at the very top end of the market. Eovaldi, 29 starts last year, 3.8 ERA, 3.6 ERA last year. He's put together some good years.
Yeah.
I just think Eovaldi's in the Buehler market, and I would rather have Walker Buehler just because of history, and he's the man. So,
and in all honesty, it looks like if they can get Walker Buehler cheap, it may end up being a huge value because if he is starting to figure out now who he is and pitch to that, he could be an absolute performer. Yeah, maybe not the Cy Young kind of guy he was previously, but somebody better, definitely better than what we saw earlier this season, closer to the guy who looked like he was figuring it out in the postseason.
Yeah, fair enough. Man, we got some good food questions coming. I hope you're ready for these, Anthony. Warm lobster roll clears crab cakes. By the way, that was according to our Dodger Blue account. So we agree. Let's rapid fire some of these. Scooter Booter, yes or no? Any of the top free agent starters signed at the winter meetings?
I mentioned I was on the Roger Lodge show on 8:30, and I said I didn't think any of the top 3, top 4 kind of position players or the top 3 pitchers sign at the meetings. I think they all go afterward.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just refuse to believe that anything good is going to happen quickly. So there you go.
And the meetings, the winter meetings have changed from what they used to be. They're not like the palooza of trades and signings that they used to be because the negotiations are so much tougher now because guys want the 7 years, 214 like Corbin Burns, and teams do not want to pay that stuff anymore.
Mike M, will Ohtani start the season in the rotation? I would say no to this question.
I'm guessing no.
TQT, Soto doesn't seem to be a realistic option. Should we just go hard after Teo before his market fully develops? I'd rather not be late on re-signing him. My take on this is I think Teoscar Hernandez wants to be a Dodger, and I think you can use that to your advantage if you're the Dodgers. I think you need to remain in the Juan Soto market until Juan Soto doesn't have a market anymore, just because it would be malpractice not to. And I think you can do that and still get Teoscar Hernandez back at the end of this, because I don't think there's going to be teams that are chasing after him until Soto signs. That's my take, Anthony. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily up to the Dodgers. And I'm with you. I think they need to stay in that market just to see how it develops. But I think Teoscar is also waiting to see how that develops because he's going to have a lot more suitors once that market clears. I think that's become sort of the norm now. As I've said earlier, like things move so much past the winter meetings and even into spring training that those second tier markets take so long to develop. Like Snell was a second tier kind of pitcher last season on the market. I mean, it was almost the regular season, right? When he signed, that was why he started so poorly. And so I think those guys are now willing to wait, especially position players are willing to wait to see how the market pans out for them. Teoscar might be a guy where he says, you know what, I really do want to come back. I understand what the market is because of the QO as well. I'll sign with you maybe before Soto signs. But again, that might not come until later in January or even just before camp starts.
Yeah, I agree. Cole wants to know, will the Will Smith contract be an albatross around the Dodgers' neck?
No, I don't think so. I think it's not a high enough AAV for them to feel the hit there. And also, I think Will Smith is going to be fine. Like, I don't think that he's going to be such a poor player that it's just a contract you absolutely regret. I mean, you look at some of the other contracts they have on the books, and Will Smith's the least of their issues in terms of like, will this or that player not age well?
Yeah, his AAV is $14 million a year. So I think it'll be fine. I would be lying if I said I wasn't slightly concerned after how last season ended and as he gets older and catching and all that kind of thing. But on the whole, I think it was an aberration. That's my guess. Back-to-back, Nate. How many starters do the Dodgers need to sign this offseason? So if you're not counting Buehler, Kershaw as guys currently on the team, how many starters would you like to see them sign?
2.
Okay. So Buehler and Kershaw would check both those boxes.
Yes. If Sasaki is available, then he's both of our number ones. And then I think they figure that out. But remember, they have Gonsolin and Dustin May, and there's other options in their own pipeline at the moment. We'll see where Landon Knack is. We'll see what Gavin Stone's situation is with the injury. But there are other guys in that position. And that's why I said what I said about the Eovaldi deal is like, I think they have a bunch of those guys already.
Yeah. And Stone, by the way, is out for all of 2025 with shoulder surgery. So he's off the radar. But guys like Bobby Miller, Landon Knack, who you mentioned, Tony Gonsolin, Dustin May, Nick Frasso, Kyle Hurt. These are all guys that potentially could be in the mix. Let's see. Christopher says Kikuchi is a value option for the front office. His numbers with the Astros are outstanding. I think the Dodgers can get him to produce more similar to the Astros than the Blue Jays. I didn't answer the last question. I think it's 3. I think it's Buehler. I think it's Kershaw. And then I think, to your point, like if you can get a high-end guy, do it. And if you can't, then I'm good with Buehler and Kershaw. If you can get Sasaki, great. If not, if you can get Snell or Burns, great. If not, then I'm good with just Kershaw and Buehler, and running it back would be.
And they're getting a frontline acquisition in terms of the rotation, like a frontline type of starter in Ohtani.
Yeah. Okay, a couple more of these, and then we'll get to. Oh, here we go. Christopher says, I'd like to see Sean Manaea on a cheap deal. The Dodgers can take advantage of his new revitalization, plus add a lefty to the rotation. Again, I would personally not. If it's not Buehler, Kershaw, and one of the top end guys, then I would just stick with Buehler and Kershaw. But are you a Manaea guy?
He's a nice dude. Like I like him personally,
yeah.
But no, I'm with you. I think that if signing a guy like Manaea would come at the expense of a Kershaw or a Buehler, if those two guys are options, then I would pass.
Okay. Let's do, I think we got one or two more baseball questions. Prize Picks Poppy. What do you think our chances of landing Sasaki are at this moment? Scale of 0 to 100. Odds the Dodgers sign Sasaki are what, Anthony?
Okay, let's play this game without the assumption that he posts. You have to build in will he or won't he? Yeah.
When we know he's posting. You're saying, does he post in time for 2025?
And do the Dodgers sign him when he posts? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm saying there 65% that the Dodgers end up with Sasaki. If we're doing this saying that he posts
you're saying after December 2nd, and now 2025 money is in play.
Yes. Because if he posts before, I think it's like 90%.
Yeah, it's high.
Yeah. I think after that, I think it's like, again, we're assuming the post now. I would say like 70, like 7 out of 10 times that he would post, the Dodgers would still get him.
Well, and they've announced he's posting, so he's definitely posting.
We just don't know when.
We don't know when. We don't know when. I would actually, it's interesting. I would say 85%. Those would be my odds. I think he's a Dodger 85% of the time. Let's see. I think there was one other. Oh, Kenneth says, will the Dodgers trade for Devin Williams? Where are you at on
Man, you know what? I was stunned that the Brewers declined that option. I really was. I think, and my first, like my fans' eye went immediately to how do we get him?
Yeah.
He's had, last year was not as great for him, especially how it ended. I think he's still a quality leverage arm. I think that stuff still plays. I'm sure that front office is going to make those calls.
Reports are they're not listening. They don't plan to trade him, by the way.
Yeah, that's garbage. Otherwise they would not have announced. They would not have declined it if they weren't planning to trade him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there are entertaining offers. Be interesting to see what the Dodgers kind of package would have to look like to land a player like him. I want them to at least be in on that. If they don't get him because the price is too steep, then that's fine. But he is the kind of guy I would really like them to at least try to acquire.
And to be clear, they had a $10.5 million team option. They declined that, but he's still under arbitration. So they had to pay him $500,000 to buy out of that. He's likely to get $8 or $9 million in arbitration, was the estimation from Jeff Passan. So that's the information. All right, let's get to 2 food questions here. Ella Shiva wants to know, would you drink pumpkin pie spiced coffee?
I'm not a coffee guy. But if I were, that sounds awful.
I'm out on all pumpkin flavored things. Hard pass for me, Ella Shiva. Sorry about that. Ella Shiva also asks, ribeye steak or filet mignon? Dodger Blue asked, what is the best cut of steak and why is it filet? I do not think it's the filet.
It's
I'm
filet.
a T-bone. I'm a T-bone or a ribeye guy personally.
It's filet. Filet is the best cut. Now, if we go back,
all you dainty little 4-ounce guys over here.
Well, let me finish. Let me finish. If we go back to the previous question, it's a ribeye because I need a full meal.
Yeah, exactly. It's cute. The little 4-ouncers, real cute on the plate. But yeah, give me a T-bone, give me a ribeye. The filet sounds great until I look at the ounces, and then I say, I'll take the 16-ouncer, please. Thank you. And
I mean, when you bite a filet versus biting into a ribeye, you understand the cost difference. But like, I need to be full if I'm spending money on a steak, so it's going to be a ribeye.
Now, I will say, and the moderator knows this, I've been to a couple meals at steakhouses where you eat so many appetizers, and there are so many sides on the table that you don't hate the fact that you may have an 8-ounce filet sitting in front of you. Like, I've been at those meals where I stare down at 16-ounce steak and I say, you know what? I could have done the 8 because we're crushing scalloped potatoes. We crushed crab cakes. We crushed seafood. We crushed whatever before we even got here. But if I'm buying and I'm on my own bill and we're not getting 3 or 4 appetizers and 5 or 6 sides, then sign me up for a 16-ounce steak, please, so that I can get my fair share in one.
I will say when I'm getting frisky though, and my eyes are very big, I have been known to order a porterhouse for one.
There you go. Hey, no need to explain yourself around these parts, Anthony. No need to explain yourselves. And then desserts as well. Dodger Blue. Yes, there's a story, and where we ate so much. I mean, there is food, like half-eaten plates everywhere on the table at one of these meals. We're talking like one of them was an Italian place. The first time I ever went to a meal, and I'm trying to keep details scarce here, but I went to an Italian place. There were 3 of us. We ordered at least 3 appetizers. We all ordered entrees and then probably 2 to 3 sides. So I got chicken parmesan. Shout out to my guy Blake. That was amazing. I ate half of it. I was so full because all appetizers, like I could just sit and eat appetizers all day, every day, and be satisfied. So we eat that. And then the waitress comes by and says, "Would you like dessert?" And the person in charge of this particular meal just said, "Bring me your 3 favorites." I'm like, do you not see that we got half-eaten plates everywhere on the table? And it was fantastic. It was amazing. One of the best meals I've ever been to. I won't tell you the price of the wine that was ordered at this, but man, it was a crazy, crazy meal. But yeah, it's that was my experience. So yes, appetizers, sides, entree, and then more desserts than there are people hungry at the table. It's a good combination. All right, folks, that'll do it for us here on a Tuesday night. Thank you. Over 3,000 people joining us live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Again, Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, Sunday nights, live right here on the Dodger Blue 1958 YouTube. You can subscribe, ring the notification bell. We greatly appreciate that. Again, we've got a Dodgers player that will be on our channel tomorrow morning. We're excited about that. Here's some stories that maybe you haven't heard. Again, what's it like to be in the bullpen when Walker Buehler walks in the bullpen is kind of a fun story. So that is Anthony Witrado. I am Jeff Spiegel. Check out DodgerBlue.com. Shout out to our friends at Homage, by the way, HOMAGE. You can find their link in the description below. Incredible stuff. They've got a sale right now on a Jackie Robinson starter jacket for just $99, and they have World Series gear coming out this week. I believe it's tomorrow, potentially. So check out Homage.com. Click the link below to check that and support them. Tons and tons of good stuff from them. And I'm not saying this because they're a partner of ours. It is the most comfortable clothing that I've ever worn. I have friends that buy shirts of teams they don't even like because the shirts are that comfortable. So check out Homage because they're great stuff. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Again, we will see you again soon. Enjoy the rest of your night. As always, go Dodgers. And yes, still champs.